Play at Novibet.
Hello and a warm welcome to another edition of the Irish Angle in association with Novibet. As usual, I've Emma Nagel and Johnny Ward with me here this week.
Guys, welcome Emma to the show. Want that.
There you have it, yeah. Have you matched up already? There you go. So how'd your week go? All good?
Yeah, good for me anyway. Kind of quiet weekend. I was out at the Stallion Trail on Saturday. But yeah, it was good. Nothing too major for me anyway.
Yeah. Were you racing, Johnny?
Yeah, I was at Fairyhouse Saturday, and there's an issue with racing TV extra at the moment. So if you're working on the channel, there isn't as much kind of work. So when 35-minute gaps today actually does feel a bit longer because kind of your pre-race interviews don't generally go out. But I managed to get a chat with Paul Carberry and his mother Pamela, and I was just thinking about this, Vinny, afterwards. Like, we were blessed. I got into racing 20 years ago, give or take. We were blessed with the generation of jockeys in, and not only that, but the characters. And every time I think of Paul Carberry riding, I actually feel a bit sad that there's nothing like him around again, and possibly never will be. But it was great to talk to him, and that kind of made my day, really. His mother, obviously, there for Joan and Dan Moore. Her own parents honoured in the big race, but very, very small crowd, Vinny. It was a cold day, and I know I'd say a lot of people on Saturday were going to the funeral of Sandy Shaw's wife as well. Sandy be very popular, but it was very notable how few people were at Fairyhouse Saturday, and it's a major challenge. You spoke about this in your blog, so it's a major challenge to get people racing apart from the festivals.
Yeah, it seems to be, doesn't it? Yeah, even look, I wasn't at Naas on Friday for the rescheduled meeting, which was free entry, but I'm told there was a poor enough attendance there too, even with it free in for Grade 1 racing. So look, it's a real challenge, isn't it, going forward? There's no doubt about it. It's very difficult. And you're right to bring up poor Sandy Shaw's wife there, who died. Sandy's a lovely guy. He's a National Hunt handicapper with the IHRB, one of the better guys in the sport, I'd have to say. I don't think you'd ever hear anyone say a bad word about Sandy and his poor wife. It was quite quick. I think that she took ill and passed away last week. Just moving on then. Look, let's have a look at some of the stuff from last week. Emma, what was your highlight? We had some fair horses running, didn't we?
Yeah, I suppose like there was a 4 days race, and I suppose like the Lauders was the big one of the week. A bit of a shock there, reading Tommy Wrong overturning his short price stablemate. I thought kind of this horse, he's kind of a hard one to judge. Like, is it just a fluke result, or have we been kind of underrating him the whole time? Like he was unbeaten coming up to the race. I think he was beaten in a point to pointer, right? But on the track he was unbeaten, and I thought he was very good. Like they pulled away from the third horse as well. Like Atlantique was a horse that Willie was kind of talking up for a long time as well. And maybe this horse just improving. I think that Daryl Jake gave him great rides, kind of snuck up from behind and pipped him on the line. But yeah, I'd be interested to see where he goes going forward. But there's been loads of good horses out, I suppose, over the last few days. Tully Hill kind of on Friday as well, and then Splan's Tower, for Jimmy Mangan looked like a good horse as well. But yeah, there was plenty of them you could pick over the last few days, I think.
Well, that's one thing about that, reading Tommy wrong, I suppose. That we're all reading things wrong here. It's just these novices, whether they're over fences or hurdles at this time of the year, they're very lightly raced, and they can improve rapidly is the thing, isn't it? So you can find one just popping up. We've had this all down the years, and things like the Supreme Novice hurdle, things coming in at 33-1 and whatever, including trained by Willie Mullins once upon a time. But we had a few horses that ended up going into short price favourites for some of the festival races. Mystical Power, Annie Power's son. What you make of that, Johnny? Gone favourite for the Supreme.
Yeah, I suppose just the first thing to talk about in terms of the race, the race at Naas. The thing that I took out of it, Vinny, was I was reading in the Irish Field over the last week's Irish Field that I hadn't realised that Authorised Stallion had come back to Ireland from Turkey, and this is mad stuff, really. He won the Derby in 2007, and fair to say he was a disappointing flat stallion, and then he started to kind of by hook or by crook breed some very good national hunt horses. Nicholas Canyon, Tiger Roll, obviously some very good horses, and I am Maximus. So he's the guys in Capital Stud, I think they're based in Bennett's Bridge. They got onto the crowd in Turkey who had the stallion, and I wonder if this has ever happened before, where a cast off was sent off to like some obscure region like Turkey and then was sent back to Ireland. And are sent back to these parts. So they brought him back, and he's now, what is he? So 2007. So he's born in 2004. So he's 20 this year. But they brought him back with the view to kind of basically get a few national hunt mares, and I'm sure they'll pick and choose. But this is a massive boost for the whole operation that he's gotten a Grade 1 winner straight away with it. Again, a somewhat unheralded horse, but like I think it'll be a mad story if sort of 5, 6, 7 years down the line from now, Authorized is getting some really good national hunt horses after going over to Turkey. And you can imagine him coming back from Turkey to Ireland and wondering what was going on. But he's gonna be quite popular, Authorized. Like, he's capable of getting very, very good national hunt horses. And I don't know what he's standing for, but if Walk in the Park is 25 grand, I can guarantee Authorized is going to be way better value than that. So that was that. And then onto stallions like Galileo. Galileo's the sire of Mystical Power. I've spoken about this before. I don't know how JP McManus, I mean, it's an unbelievable ability to send national hunt mares to Galileo, but he's done it. In fairness, any power going to Galileo mightn't be quite as mad as the likes of Byerly Babe, but any power going to Galileo is a fascinating concept. We've seen like very good sort of staying mares like Princess Zoe, who wouldn't be necessarily that valuable just because she's a staying mare on the flat. And Annie Power is a very good horse, obviously brilliant horse over hurdles, and would have been a very good horse in the flat staying wise, but that doesn't necessarily make you massively valuable at stud because of the perceived lack of speed or whatever. But you send her to Galileo, see what happens. Starts off in Ballinrobe in a bumper, wins that bumper, won in Galway, beats Samui 7 lengths. I was still thinking this horse shouldn't be anywhere near as short as he is going into a very good Moscow Flyer at Punchestown. I know with a couple of non-runners or whatever, but this was absolutely class to watch because, like, you think now you've JP McManus favourite for the Supreme out of Annie Power by Galileo, trained by Willie Mullins, the first race at the festival at Cheltenham. There's going to be so much chat about this horse, and it was just the way that he did it. He's not really bred to be a hurdler in some respects. He's by Galileo. Galileo is not around to breed hurdlers, and sending a mare to Galileo to breed a hurdler is very, very unusual. Only JP McManus could really do that. And this horse, despite looking still a bit novice in his jumping, I was watching Mark Walsh's body language sort of from the third last on, and you could tell that there was a lot there, but even still, the impressive nature of the burst of speed, and that is where the pedigree comes in, the bit of Galileo and the bit of Annie Power, where this horse has flat speeds. I thought this was brilliant to watch, just to see a hype horse now for the Supreme, Willie Mullins, and you can see some of the bookmakers already giving offers in terms of the Supreme if this horse is beaten. Brilliant to see, brilliant for racing, and a real, possibly a superstar in the making as well.
Well, there's another thing. All the horses we've talked about so far are all trained by Willie Mullins. He went into last Thursday morning. He was one winner behind Gordon Elliott in the trainer's title so far this season. I know that the official champion trainer has decided on prize money, but he was one winner behind. He comes out now. By the end of the week, he's now gone 7 ahead. He's steamrolling it, isn't we? Were talking only a couple of weeks ago about the fact that his stable, it seemed almost as if there were two stables. There was ones were winning and ones were losing and running poorly. All of a sudden, they're all winning. I was just looking at it here. He's season so far, 33% strike rate. Last 21 days, 38% strike rate. These are unheard of numbers. The other thing I looked at, I still can't believe this actually, considering he's a national hunt trainer, no faller in his last 87 runners. That's unreal, isn't it? When you think about it, when you think of the number of fallers on seats, brought downs, nothing. Hasn't had one of them in the last 87 runners. The other thing here is just looking at it. I saw one of his horses the other day that fair enough, it could have fallen. Hunter's Yarn, that's another one. I think I was going to mention that as maybe one to follow going forward. But again, he was one who'd fallen on his previous start. Comes out the other day, fell in December in Fairyhouse. Comes out the other day and he wins. Now he did make a mistake again, but they jump very well too. We always think of the Bromhead as the stable where the horses particularly jump particularly well, but obviously Willie's jump seriously well too. What do you think, Emma? It's like a new yard, is it? All of a sudden he's flying on all cylinders.
Yeah, I suppose we were probably being a bit harsh saying his horses weren't fire, and he was still probably operating at about 25% strike rate at that stage. Like, it's, yeah, when you kind of, we saw the numbers there, like he caught up to Gordon with about half the amount of runners. Like, it's mad to think of it really. Like, but I suppose, like, you see, I think David Casey was racing from there yesterday. Like, I saw videos of Ruby Walsh riding out during the week. Like, when you've lads around like that, like, I suppose it's no shock how well the horses can go. And I think he's kind of a different approach to schooling as well as most trainers would. I think I've heard Ruby talking about it before, that he doesn't do a whole pile of schooling at all. He just kind of leaves them figuring it out. Maybe school them once or twice before race, and that'll be it. A lot of trainers will do a lot more, but yeah, whatever he's doing is working anyway. It's kind of interesting what Jenny was mentioning as well about the stallion coming back from Turkey. I think they actually tried to bring back Timos, who was the sire of Galopin des Champs. I'd say Galopin des Champs is probably the only good horse he has, but they tried to bring him back from somewhere like Turkey, somewhere out in the desert anyway. But I think he actually didn't make it in transit on the way back. So I think they probably tried it once or twice, right? But yeah, Authorized will be a massissive addition to the stallion ranks. Yeah, really has a few good ones by him as well.
Often stories and that as well. I remember Paul Byrne was saying, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, one day he was at Willie Mullins' yard and this horse went by and he just kind of zoomed by on the gallops, and Paul said to Willie, I think Paul was with Willie Mullins, he said, who's this horse? The horse turned out to be Duvan, right? So Paul, thinking outside the box, said, where's the mayor of Duvan, right? And the mayor was with some really kind of unusual, in really unusual parts of the world, like North Africa or something like that, maybe like Tunisia or Libya or some mad place anyway. And Paul went out of his way to try to get the dam of Duvan, and he thought he'd gotten it, I think, at one point, thought he'd gotten it another point, didn't get it in the end anyway. But then obviously John Bond came along and all of this as well. But it's kind of like thinking outside the box, like, because to bring a horse back from Turkey is, at this stage of his life, is very unusual.
Yeah, very true. Anyway, we're going to move on. We've loads more. Well, the other one, another horse I want to just mention from the other day. Tell me what you think of this. It wasn't that impressive to me, but lots of people are getting behind it for the champion bumper. Romeo Coolio cost 420,000 when it was bought after winning a point-to-point. Gordon Elliott trains it. Won a small field race, went a relatively slow gallop, which Gordon didn't think was suitable for the horse, but seems to be all systems go. Anyway, wrap him up now till Cheltenham. What do you think, Emma? Is that a champion bumper winner?
I wasn't massively impressed by him, to be honest. Like, they went slow, and it was kind of a sprint. Like, I suppose with the rumours, he has to be a good horse. He has to be decent anyway. He cost a lot of money after he's point to point, but I thought he was probably going to kick on, and he didn't kick on probably as far as I'd like him to with that kind of reputation. But Gordon was saying the way the race was ran didn't suit him. If they went to a faster pace, maybe in Cheltenham, he'd surely be more in his own comfort zone. But like, the horse who was second was only beaten a couple of lengths, and he was well beaten in the bumper. He was well beaten 10 or 13 lengths or something, I think, last time he ran. He was second that day as well. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to believe the hype, he looks like a good horse, but he'd have to do a little bit more, I'd say, visually to be for me to be backing for the champion bumper. It's kind of the odds he's at now anyway.
Yeah. Now, anyway, we've a quiet week coming up racing wise in Ireland. There's very little here, because obviously everything has been moved into the Dublin Racing Festival over the last few years. So all those other big meetings there would have been every weekend in the National Hunt season are now all concentrated into those 2 days. So we've a quiet enough week. So let's have a little look at some of the things that are going on in the UK. There's all sorts of squabbles and infighting and all sorts of things. The fella Martin Cruddens, Arena Leisure, he came out fighting during the week, saying all sorts of stuff about what they do with our media rights money, and telling people to more or less F off if you don't like what we're doing is almost the sentiment. What did you make of that, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen bits and pieces about it. I think it's probably, look, there's probably two ways of looking at it. I suppose he doesn't work for racing; he works for the company, the private company that runs the race courses, and he's trying to protect their interests. But I suppose at the same time, you can see, like, I've seen a few trainers kind of frustrated on social media, kind of expressing their thoughts on it, talking about maybe possibly even boycotting the courses, not entering horses to run there. And I suppose you can see their frustrations, like, it's kind of hard to, like, you'd like maybe for more alignment from the racecourse group and racing on it. It's just they seem to have totally different goals in kind of the whole thing. Like, trainers want transparency, I suppose, so that they'll know where the media rights money is going, and this kind of I suppose a lot of people haven't hidden their frustrations with the prize money offered at those race courses as well. So it's a tough one to kind of get to the end of, I suppose. It would be interesting to see, will the trainers go further with their, like, there's a few of them kind of talking about a bit of action, not entering horses there. If that was to go ahead with, I'd imagine that the whole group is going to have to take a look at maybe their practices and pump a bit more money back into the sport, maybe.
What do you make of it, Johnny? Like, we're dealing with a situation here where the British racing, I wrote a blog about it this week, or part of the blog at least around it, is that British racing is totally sitting on top of punters. Punters are holding it all up, isn't it? It's punters' money that goes to the bookmakers, that the profits from that partly go towards media rights. The media rights pay for all the race courses and the prize money, and that filters down and everything else. So it's all built on the backs of punters losing money. And that's where it sits. It's not quite the same in Ireland, where we have government funding coming in as well as the punters' money through media rights and everything else. But what do you think about in the UK? Are they in trouble here with all this new regulations coming in, affordability checks? They seem to be like a dog chasing its tail at this stage, running around in circles trying to sort themselves out. But it's all coming down the line very soon, isn't it? That, you remember there was the poll they did there, or looking for people to what was that about the affordability checks? They need 100,000 signatures. They eventually got it to get this debated in the House of Commons. That's due to happen, I think, next month. Will that make a difference, Johnny?
Yeah, like you start going on about the Serengeti in the blog today, and the analogy of the apex predator and all that, and I'd be very, very worried about the state of racing in terms of its funding model, because the model is being seriously eroded, really, really badly eroded. And if you speak to bookmaker representatives now, they'll tell you that, you know, they're moving more towards sport and more away from racing and greyhound racing and stuff like that. Like the betting shop when you were a younger, Vinny, the betting shop was kind of, I suppose, everyone was betting on racing pretty much. It was all racing. That's completely changed now, and the betting shop itself is becoming dead as well. People are getting away from the betting shop, and the internet has changed so many things. But in terms of betting, it has made people, it has made people have access to a betting in their pocket all the time, and I suppose the betting companies have paid serious money for people to come up with models for in-play betting and build a bet and all of this on sport and live TV, really. That's where it's going. And with racing, when you bring in all these affordability checks and you see the figures for the betting exchanges in the last, say, sort of 3 or 4 years, we are talking about a massive, massive drop in turnover. Like, it's down 50% on Betfair in the last few years. I can't give you the exact years, so I don't have it on me, but I wrote about this in the Business Post recently. What this has meant then is that a lot of people have started to bet sort of, and I think Curtis was on about this as well, have started to bet with sort of on WhatsApp, or bet like kind of in the black market, and get away from the affordability checks. When you add in the fact that, field sizes in Britain are down so much, a lot of the racing isn't particularly attractive. A lot of the big owners have gone out of the sport. Britain, as you mentioned in your blog, Vinny, does not have the government given, as you called it, a handout. The government isn't supporting racing at all to that extent in Britain. So, British racing is in serious trouble. But if British racing is in trouble, Irish racing will feel that as well. And the funding model of racing is really, really under pressure. It really is, because punters more and more are not betting on racing. They're betting on other sports. We can't take that for granted. And what worries me as well is that bookmakers are losing interest in paying anyone to come up with prices. Anti-post betting it's not dead, but it's kind of a shadow of what it was. And they're more interested, bookmakers are more interested in having models to make money on sport that they basically don't really need to employ people for. And racing, as you say, is in terms of profit margin, isn't what it was. Really, really big problems ahead, because ARC wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, but there's an element of truth in what Curtis said. And just lastly on this, what were the 5 race courses in Ireland thinking? What were they thinking to think that they'd lump their lot in with this guy instead of, and I work for Racing TV, so maybe I'm biased, but did they think ARC was the way to go?
Yeah, that was a funny thing, wasn't it? That was a short-lived protest there, wasn't it? They seemed to back down for no reason. They didn't get any extra money. They didn't get any assurances. They didn't get anything. They didn't even get transparency they were looking for from horse racing Ireland at the time, and nothing was particularly given to them. They just came back into the fold and all signed on the dotted line for the Racing TV deal. But like, you wonder with this just all around it, like, the British race courses are obviously run leaner and meaner. They have to be, because of the situation that they have to put up the prize money out of some of their media rights money, whereas in Ireland, it's all given to them, isn't it? It's on a plate here. Horse race in Ireland puts up 67% or something of the prize money. Then there's a bit of sponsorship comes in. They're not even too worried about whether they get sponsorship in or not. The prize money levels are all guaranteed as minimums and everything else for every race across the year. Are they getting a bit lax here, Emma, just with what's coming or what might be coming? Obviously, there's a danger for saying in 5 years' time they're going to sign a new media rights deal. Horse Racing Ireland will broker it on behalf of the race courses, presuming that's all still as it was in current legislation. So that's how it will happen, the mechanism for it. But there mightn't be a huge amount of money offered by whichever party, whether it's a racing TV or the other side of it with the Sky Sports Racing or whoever is behind the different partnerships. They may not be offering anything like the money they're offering at the moment. They've already put the current deal linked to betting as well, so it's on turnover, so the amount of turnover on a race meeting. So that's one side of the revenue for the industry through the race courses. And then you've got the other side of it is the government funding. That's can't be absolutely guaranteed forever, because obviously you get a different government in. Depends on who comes in. We know ourselves, just as it is within Ireland, that Sinn Féin, plenty of their politicians have been grumbling about the amount of money that's been given to horse racing over the years. So if they were the leading party in the country, you'd imagine that money is going to dry up to some extent. There's also a case for saying Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, none of them might be in the next time with the way things are going here at the moment, with all sorts of protests about foreigners coming into the country and everything else. It could be a whole load of independents, or some new party crops up and becomes the leading party at the end of the next election, which is only a year away as well. So what do you think, Emma? Does racing really need to get its act together here and be forward thinking about other revenue streams?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like you're saying, like the amount you kind of touched on in your blog as well, like the amount that we kind of rely on the government funding, maybe a small bit worrying, because like you said, it's not really guaranteed to keep going at the same level anyway, at least. Like you said, like if Sinn Féin get into government next time, which looks, I mean, they have a fair chance of it. Like you can imagine they're not going to give anything near the level of funding that racing currently gets, which will have trickle down effects on admission prices, prize money, and all different kinds of things. Yeah, look, I mean, I suppose like you mentioned, when Naas couldn't get a crowd on Friday with a grade one race and free entry, it's a little bit worrying. Look, I know there was a few different things on, like the Stallion Trail and stuff, when it taken away a bit from the crowd, but I think they probably do need to start looking ahead, and I suppose not be resting on this reliance on of this money coming from from racing TV, and especially from the government, because it's definitely not guaranteed to keep coming at the same level anyway, at least.
Okay, well, another thing that came up yesterday is David Walsh wrote an article in the Sunday Times in the UK, very respected journalist. He wrote all about Bryony Frost and how her star is on the wane following the bullying case she had a couple of years ago with Robbie Dunn. What do you think of that, Johnny? First of all, Bryony Frost, in my opinion, was very good for racing. I know she can be a little bit Marmite with some people, but I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was extremely eloquent when she'd ride a winner and explaining how she'd ridden it and how she'd got on with the horse and all the different aspects of it. I thought she was terrific, a breath of fresh air when she came along. Obviously, she's hardly riding now, certainly not at the level she was. She picks up the odd ride for Paul Nicholls, Lucy Wadham. They were her main supporters before the incident with the case with Robbie Dunn. What do you think about the David Walsh piece, Johnny?
Yeah, just lastly on what Emma was saying there, I wouldn't really be too worried about Sinn Féin. I think Sinn Féin is basically a populist party now, and I don't think Sinn Féin will want to piss off the racing industry. So, but I would have shared those concerns in the past. They've kind of dissipated. The whole Bryony thing, Vinny, like when you say she's Marmite, like I'm squabbling with myself on this, because I think I'm a bit like you, whereas I think Bryony was very, very good for racing, and the whole fraud on thing, as much as it wouldn't really be for me, the kind of her language after racing and kind of, you know, the excessive kind of you know, I suppose life in her after the race and all that. Even like I'm frankly, I prefer Ryan Moore to Frankie Dettori, for example. So I thought, like, the Bryony thing, you know, and frauds and all of that, like, I could kind of take it or leave it. But at the same time, I think she's great for racing. I've always actually considered her a very talented rider as well. I think she can get a really good tune out of steeplechasers in general. Lovely kind of loose style of rein and all that. And So I think the loss of Bryony Frost to the whole Saturday racing kind of entertainment is actually, it is a bit of a loss, because we don't have that many characters around in the weighing room that much anymore. Like a lot of, if you look at in the Irish context, I mean, what jockeys would you say afterwards? Like, oh, he's going to say something amazing, or it's going to be really like, a lot of them are pretty quiet. They kind of just get on with it. And in Britain, I suppose, it's a bit like that as well. So having a character like Bryony, who's obviously female in a massively male dominated sport, was a good thing. The thing with Robbie Dunn, again, I've very mixed feelings about it, because I feel that a lot of people felt Bryony probably shouldn't have gone down the route she did, and I think she probably has suffered for that. And David Walsh's article spoke that Robbie Dunn's has suffered as well. Robbie's a veteran jockey as well at this stage, so maybe it's kind of an issue of timing with him as well. But I think the whole thing has been quite unsatisfactory, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe speak to Bryony at length about this at some stage to see what she feels, because I imagine the weighing room wasn't the same place for her afterwards. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. I think this was, there's a way of dealing with things in the weighing room down the years that wasn't this, but maybe Bryony felt that was the way to go, and she was vindicated by the judgment, but it hasn't done her any favours, whether that's fair or not.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have. But look, you talk about characters. Every sport needs characters, don't they? They need something to grab the attention of the wider public, to draw more people in to be fans of the sport. You talk about it, likes of a Paul Carberry. How many fans did he bring to the sport over his years at the top of the game? Like, he was a right character, and the way he rode was very different to everyone else and everything he did. But you look at this with Frankie Dettori. We know he was huge for the sport, like him or loathe him or whatever you think of him. It doesn't make any difference. He was fabulous for horse racing. He had to bring a lot of people through into the game in all sorts of different capacities that got interested in it through Frankie Dettori and all of his larger than life antics and everything else. He's gone. Bryony Frost was a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. She's more or less gone. Hopefully she'll come back in some capacity, even if it's not riding, but I don't know why she's not on TV more, certainly as a pundit or something. Surely there's an opportunity there. There's plenty of other people getting a living out of that, so I don't see why she couldn't. What do you think, Emma? Do we need more characters? How do we get them?
Yeah, I suppose it's a fair point. Like you were saying, like Frankie's gone now, and he was one that would always bring a good crowd to the track. I suppose, yeah, the young jockeys coming up now, maybe they're getting a bit more media training, they're getting a bit quieter and kind of watching what they say in interviews and stuff like that. Maybe that has a part to play in it. Yeah, it's kind of hard to know with the whole Bryony thing. I saw a lot of the reaction on social media. Like Johnny was saying, it'd be good to maybe speak to Bryony and see what she thinks. Like, it's kind of hard to say that, oh, she's not getting rides because this happened, when you don't really know her situation either. Like, is she riding out for a lot of different trainers? Is she going different places, schooling horses and stuff? It kind of happens with a lot of jockeys when they get to a certain level, that their rides kind of petered out. So maybe, is it just that taking course, or is she really trying to drive on with the ride? Maybe she was a bit disillusioned after the whole thing fell out as well. It'd be good to kind of get an interview with her and see what she thought about the whole situation, I suppose, just to get kind of a more rounded view of it. But yeah, I mean, look, she was a good character. I kind of agree with Johnny. It wouldn't be totally for me, but you could see why people would like it. It's kind of very emotive, and yeah, it gets people. I suppose it's kind of more, it fits the British audience, I think, more so than the Irish audience. We probably don't go for that stuff as much as they would. But look, people did love her, and yeah, she is a lost race in a way, I suppose, because especially for the younger people, younger girls coming through, I suppose they'd like to see on the telly.
All right. Well, look, we'll move on. Last thing for the show is horse to follow. I'll give you mine first, which I've mentioned already, is Hunter's Yarn. This horse, a fair horse last year, I thought, well backed for the county hurdle. Disappointed in that finish in midfield. They couldn't explain why it had run so poorly, but there was a lot of money for him prior to that. He still looks a work in progress over fences. As I said, he fell on his penultimate start in Fairyhouse back in December, but then he won the other day. Still a mistake. Paul Townend is saying, look, there's a fair engine here. I think this is a very good horse. He thought he would have learned from the fall the previous day. Didn't quite learn from it. Still made another bad mistake. Thought he was gone again, but didn't. I think he's a bit of a talent, that horse. Might take a while for him the penny to really drop with him over fences, but I think he could make a fair chaser. Emma, have you got one for me?
Yeah, I was very impressed by Jimmy Mangan's horse in Punchestown yesterday. Splans Tower overturned Blood Destiny, was odds-on favourite. Look, I just thought he was fairly green. He had won, and he started before over 2 miles, I think. I'd say he came on a good bit from that, but he was still green, like coming down to the last, like he was just making up ground the whole time on the winner. And you'd like to see, will he go on from this now and keep on an upward trajectory, because he's obviously a horse with plenty of talent, I'd say. And Blood Destiny is a good horse, so to take his scalp was no small feat. So interesting to see where he goes from here, but I'd say he'll be a fairly decent horse in the future for Jimmy Mangan.
Good stuff. Do you think he'd be Cheltenham bound?
Hard to know with him, I suppose. Like he looks quite green. Probably more so one for next year. But yeah, 2.5 miles, 3 miles. I'd say I wouldn't be backing him for the Arkle now.
All right, fair enough. Johnny?
I'm going to give a horse that was beaten actually this week, lads, and it's Il Atlantique. I found that the whole Lawlers and Naas race was a puzzler. Bear in mind now, last Sunday we were supposed to see Mystical Power. 2 Sundays ago. So that would have been fascinating if the fog intervened then. But Mystical Power was basically going to run, and I do wonder would it have been ideal, because the ground probably dried out a fair bit from Naas to Punchestown a week later. But in any event, we missed out on Mystical Power if you turned up at Naas, and you missed out on all the action. So the race then turned into a 7-horse race. The betting itself was kind of was a bit mad. Untubber was quite weak. Firefox was beaten 9 lengths. Looks another sort of walk in the park that I don't know, just might be a little bit disappointing, or it's early days, but like I thought Firefox was disappointing considering all the hype about him. And then Croke Park beating 23 lengths, who looked a very promising horse. So you're kind of wondering. Lecky Watson was third, but Il Atlantique for me, I was very, very concerned that the ground is drying out too much for him. And he was beaten, but I thought he gave a brilliant performance. He looks the most gorgeous chasing type going forward. If you can imagine him getting soft, heavy ground over fences, I think he's going to be a serious horse. Bear in mind now, you're talked about inexperienced horses coming into the race. But he came into the race on the back of winning a maiden hurdle by 19 lengths. It was a sort of a bit of a race he dominated on, really testing ground at Gorn. But now you're looking at he was beaten by Firefox in a bumper. Like there'd be different types of horses. He comprehensively reversed that form, and obviously his bumper form was good. But I think he'd be a total out and out chaser. Looking at his pedigree, I only noticed this morning that he only cost $8,000 as a 2-year-old for whatever reason. But the dam was a French sort of jumper, and you'd imagine there's going to be a real chasing type down the line in sense of his program. But for all that he was beating the neck, I thought he really excelled himself on ground that was probably drying out a bit too much for him, and he's going to be a fantastic chasing prospect for Tony Bloom, who basically never seems to get it wrong.
No, never gets it wrong. He's like Paul Byrne, isn't he? Unbelievable. Every time. It's like they have this Midas touch with horses. And with everything, I suppose, Tony Bloom touches. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's football or anything he goes into. That Lawler's an ace. That's a head scratcher for me. I'm just wondering a little bit. Gordon was on the following day or over the weekend saying some of his horses run a little bit below par. I think his 2 he ran in that are better than we saw there. That's my feeling on it anyway. That Croke Park particularly ran absolutely stinker, didn't it? Surely that's better. There must be a day, and then whether it's they come back in time for Cheltenham and produce their absolute best, then I don't know. But certainly I wouldn't write off either of Gordon's from that. And
Gordon was saying, Vinny, on Gordon was saying on Saturday that he was worried going into the bumper that his horses had sort of been disappointed. And we're on about Romeo Coolio. Like I'm a bit like Emma. I thought the race was a mess, but he wasn't impressive in a race that the second favourite bombed out in. But Gordon did say that he was kind of slightly worried that his horses weren't exactly firing on all cylinders. But I don't know. I mean, Firefox for me, there was a very good interview with Noel Moran in the field last week as well about his plans, and I think he'll have been disappointed with this, because when he was really stepped up and looked like the trip had suited, I thought he was very disappointing.
I agree. Yeah, I thought Croke Park would have loved the trip too, but there you be. Anyway, look, we shall wait for another week or two, and we'll see more about these. We'll probably see some or all of them at the Dublin Racing Festival, which is the other thing coming up in a few weeks' time. So that'll be more exciting stuff for us. Anyway, until then, bye for now, and make sure you do gamble responsibly and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. Bye for now.